Hello, I'm Jane Turner from writewithjane.com, and I've made this video to share the importance of a preface with you. Now, this is probably only going to be of interest to people who are writing a book or thinking about writing a book. And I've done this not only for those people, but kind of to celebrate for myself because my fifth book, called How to Write the Book That Will Change Your Life, is going to be launched in April 2025. So, what you're about to hear is me reading out my preface, and I've done that just to give you a bit of an example of the way a preface should and could really connect you with your target audience. So see what you think and reach out if you need a hand with anything to do with writing, publishing, or promoting an authority producing book. A few weeks before I sat down to write this preface, I had the mother of all wake-up calls. The day in question started out like any other, but halfway through the morning I found myself moving through streets that I had both walked down and driven along many times before. However, I was seeing things from a completely different perspective. What I mean by that is that rather than being vertical, I was horizontal, which meant that I felt like I was seeing things sideways. And as if being whisked off to hospital in an ambulance wasn't enough of a head spin for someone like me, who was asymptomatic when it came to the situation with my heart that had been ticking away for who knows how long, I found myself totally transfixed by the way the world looked when I was moving through those familiar streets on a gurney in an ambulance. As far as wake-up calls go, I guess that one was reasonably modest in the scheme of things, even though it came about because the rate at which my heart was beating was vacillating between 22 beats and 35 beats per minute. Now, if you're anything like I was at the time, those numbers might not mean a whole lot to you. But what I learned in the process of finding out that I had a problem with the way my heart was working was that this is much too low for the average person's heart to be beating. The next wake-up call I had hit me not so long after I got settled into the spot in the hospital where I was hooked up to a heart monitor for what turned out to be close to 6 hours. And by that stage, I'd pretty much settled into the fact that my day was totally out of my control. And I figured I might as well just relax and go along for the ride, so to speak. With that state of acceptance in place, I noticed that there was a lady in the bed across from mine who wasn't looking very well at all. And I didn't give it a lot of thought until I noticed that people had started coming in to see her 2 at a time, and some of them were leaving in tears. And not long after the third lot of visitors left, I had a blinding flash of insight when it struck me that there was me living the first day of the rest of my life, and there was the other lady probably living the last day of hers. Now, I find that things become really clear in moments like these, and I recognised all of the ways that I'd been putting self-care on the back burner because for some reason I believed that this was what I needed to do to help my clients to succeed in their goal of becoming a published author. Now, I know that's a crazy thing to think, and the thing is that I didn't actually think it per se, but what I mean by that is that there was an unconscious belief that I'd been holding on to for who knows how long that was tantamount to saying that my needs should come last. And what's more, that belief had been determining more or less every decision I made right up to that moment of truth when I got to see what was really going on. What I know after attending God knows how many wellness retreats, kinesiology sessions, and coaching programs focused on well-being that I've gone to is that what was begging to be addressed was the underlying issue that was being masked by the fact that I used my dedication to my clients to ignore the healing that needed to be done. Now, I reckon I could have had the right to have been pretty cheesed off about the fact that all of the work I'd done on myself up to that point didn't stop me from playing out the pattern that had resulted in my first ride in an ambulance because of the chronic stress I had been living under since starting my business 10 years ago. Fortunately, the wake-up call I got from coming face to face with the question of life and death actually woke me up to the need to change the beliefs and behaviours that had got me to the state of potential heart failure. You see, people pleasing meant that I was over servicing my clients. And the kicker was that I wasn't the only one who was suffering because of that. On reflection, I can see that while most of my clients actually loved it, I can think of at least a couple of them who probably didn't. But at the end of the day, I'm not cheesed off because what I have now is a healthier approach to boundaries in particular and self-care more generally. And all I can say is thank goodness the wake-up call I had actually did the job of waking me up. And I say that because, among other things, I'm finding myself a whole lot less likely to sweat the small stuff. And I came out the other end of the day I spent in hospital with renewed determination to finish this book. And that's important to me because this is the book that my heart was telling me that I needed to write to celebrate my 10th year in business. And essentially, as well as celebrating the achievement of someone who'd spent their whole working life in the Australian public service before being made redundant at the age of 52, I'm writing this book to help you to write your own. And I'm passionate about this because my first book completely changed the trajectory of my life. And that said, I don't want you to be wasting as much time and money as I did when I wrote my first book, because that one took me over 5 years and over $30,000 that I invested in various writing programs and the like. And I don't want that for you. I actually want you to have a much easier ride than I did. But that's enough about me. What I want to do now is to acknowledge you for finding your way to this book. And there's a whole other world waiting for you on the other side of published author status. And what you're going to find in this book is the rationale for writing a non-fiction book to either leave a legacy through sharing your story or to build your profile and or business, or a bit of both. You'll also find strategies to get the content out of your head and onto the page in a way that will resonate with your target audience. And there's a summary of the publishing landscape. I've included this so that you can make an informed decision about which of the options is going to suit you best to get your book out into the world with international distribution. And last but not least, I talk about the various ways that authors can monetize their content so that they can make sure they get the return on investment that they deserve. To get the most out of everything I'm sharing with you here, I want you to take particular note of the mindset-related material. I've included this because it breaks my heart to see people who say that they want to write a book but never get around to actually doing it because of the little voice in their head that keeps telling them that they're not good enough to be a published author, or something else like that that hinders their ability to get their book written. And basically, I do what I do now because I don't want anybody wasting as much time and money as I did when I was writing my first book. So, among other things, you'll find an exercise in Chapter 1 that will help you to clear your mind to free up space for your creative juices to start flowing. And you'll find a QR code at the end of the book that will take you to my popular creativity priming meditation. And this will help you to switch off the white noise in your head and maximize your creativity and productivity whenever you sit down to do some of your writing. So let's get down to business, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with me at jane@writewithjane.com if you have any questions at all, or if you'd like to know more about how you can fast track your way to published author status by having me on your team.